I have never felt more vulnerable or exposed. I had come up against my kryptonite. You know, kryptonite, that thing that makes Superman powerless. I was a young man who was very confident, arrogant, more arrogant probably than confident, and nothing touched me. I was too young to realize what was really serious in life, and I went through life just all in, all the time, pushing, going, just not afraid. I'm the guy who jumped off of rocks into raging rivers. I'm the guy who, went on the trip without any planning and just did stuff. Then I got married and started learning to love another person, but this other person was an adult, and she had her thing, I had my thing, and we were in love, and it was fine, but that really didn't take off the edge until they put this slimy, wet little thing in my hand and said, "This is your son." That was my kryptonite. All of a sudden, I was afraid in a way I'd never been afraid before. I felt love that at once was overwhelming and joyful and terrifying. I felt this deep need to push this thing away and give it to someone more qualified, but at the same time protect and to nurture it. This thing of being a father was a pivotal thing in my life. My oldest son, this son, became 30 somehow or another earlier this year, which can't be right. I keep doing the math over and over again in my head. I'm way too young to be this old, and it just doesn't make sense. And as I look at that thing of being a parent, it brings me back full center again to this place. I'm a grandfather and a parent, to just being recommitted to this thing of family. Family is the place where we learn to be a human being. It's a way we learn one of the key skills in life that will help transform every single one of your relationships. The skill that I'm going to get to in just a minute. It's the place where we at once can be most ourselves, and at times we hide. It's the place where we behave in ways that are over the edge, because this is the one place where they have to keep loving me. And one of the things that always surprised me as a parent is I would go and I'd be going through a difficult time with one of my kids where they're just one of those challenging times where you love them, not sure you like them. And then someone would say, "Hey, I was with your kid the other day. What a great kid. And he did this and he did this." And I said, "My child did that? He was considerate and polite and thoughtful and helpful." I take pictures out. This kid right here, this kid you're talking about. This is the one. And that they were always better behaved with others than they were with me. Because I always wanted to say, "Would you ask this kid to clean his room? Could you just do that for me? Call him or something." This thing of being a parent is absolutely unnerving. And yet, it is the great calling. I want to say something to all the young people who have been coming to the church lately. It's been so encouraging to see you coming and carrying your Bibles. And I know a lot of you are coming back. You're coming back to God. You're looking for life and tradition and meaning and God. And one of the things I just want to suggest you're looking for that maybe you've given up on is family. You're looking to find a person to spend your life with who will make you better, and together for you to have kids and raise them. And this culture has been so negative about that for so long. It's been telling us you can't afford it, and you can't afford it. That has nothing to do with it. God will provide in ways will blow you away. You say, you're not ready. Of course you're not ready. But God is ready, and you become ready. You build that bridge as you walk across it. They'll say things like, "This world is too messed up." This world has always been messed up. I mean, World War II, that was pretty bad, and people still had children then. And so if you've given up on that, take a second look, because having children is where meaning is found for so many of us. Indeed, I would suggest for most of us. Today we want to talk about being a wise child, or raising a wise child. Because at the end of the day, that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise kids who are wise in all the ways that God says. We're in this series where we're looking at the book of Proverbs. And for those of you who've been going through with the devotions, you have to notice how often it talks about children, how often it talks about the dynamic between parents and children. In fact, one of the things that surprises you, if you take time to notice it, in the book of Proverbs, is that they do the exact opposite of what we do. We tend to put the emphasis on the parent's responsibility to raise the child. And I understand why we do that, and the Bible does some of that too. But if you actually think about it and you look closely, what we're going to see in the scriptures today is that the scriptures puts the main burden on the child to do a proper response to the parent. It's one of the places in the scriptures where routinely children are admonished. Young people are called. For the young people who are in here today, you ones who are in your teen years, I'm aware of the fact that very often in church we come and we talk about you, we talk around you, but today I want to talk to you. There are actually admonitions for you that will help you learn that central relational skill that you will learn in your family. It's a huge thing, and it's not the one you would expect it to be. That will help you in your relationships in ways you never thought were possible. And it all is about what will make you a wise child. So what have we been saying about being a wise child in the book of Proverbs? Now, before we do that, I do want to say this. It's been a long time since I've struggled with a message as much as I've struggled with this message. So we write these messages months and actually sometimes up to a year before, and we come to the week, and I come Monday morning and I open up this message and I start looking at it and remembering it. It burns in my heart again. If it burns in my heart, I think it'll burn in your hearts. And I looked at this one, and I got to tell you, my anxiety went up. I mean, to the point that I'm just wondering, boy, I'm struggling deeply with this message. And it was so big that actually Tuesday night, our overseers had our prayer meeting. Our overseers meet once a month to do business and once a month to pray and just connect. And I just shared with the guys, I said, I just am nervous about this one. I'm anxious about this one. And I think I've come to the conclusion that there's two reasons. One is, this really is my kryptonite. There's nothing that makes me feel more exposed, more human, more broken. Honestly, the place where people say, do you have any regrets about your life? I have some parenting regrets about my life, some deep parenting regrets about my life, and insecurities about that. And so that just became inflamed. The other thing is that when I look at this topic, I recognize how many parents are hurting about this topic. Parents who have sought to raise a wild child, Freudian slip there. Awkward. A wise child, a wise guy, not a wise child. And it's just like that, right? We laugh so we don't cry. They go through dark times, difficult times, times that are just difficult. And I know many of you have kids who you would maybe even call a prodigal, that you're wanting to come back. And so there's a lot of pain in that. And so looking at some of this is going to be a challenge for some of you. And yet, there's two things I want to say about this. One is, we're speaking about ideals, and we're doing it particularly for all the young who are here today. And the second thing I want to say to you is that you're in the middle of the story. Give God time to work, because I've seen him work in my kids in ways that have blown me away in wonderful ways. So, this verse is the verse that has tormented so many of us. Train up a child in the way they should go, and even when they're old, they depart from me. This verse has never depart from it. This verse has never comforted me as a parent. I just want to be honest. I guess I'm not a very good person. But this has been one of those things that, okay, when I read it, I tend to read it like a rule or a promise or a contract. Okay, if I do everything right and raise them the way they're going to go, well, then they'll be fine. It'll all work out. That's a guarantee. Well, we're going to learn that that's not actually what's going on, because we're going to remember what is a proverb. So what is a proverb? A proverb is a general truth cleverly expressed that is intended to direct right action. So the Proverbs, these incredible little book of Proverbs, as well as all the other Proverbs, and they are all over the scriptures, are a truism, are a general truth, are a thing that says wisdom goes forward in this way, and when it does, this tends to happen. But in this world where it's messy and every kid gets their own choice and culture is what it is, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Because this is a general truth, because one of the things we've been saying, it's not a promise. It's not a law. It's not a guarantee. But it is the wise way to live. It's the wise way to parent, to produce wise children. So remember what we're talking about here. This is the path of wisdom, but this is not about guarantees. This is about wisdom. So let's take a look at what wisdom said and apply this to your children. You may have intelligent children. I got a couple kids who actually are more intelligent than I am, which is unnerving, because I'm starting to forget stuff now, and they're still learning stuff. But you can be intelligent but still be foolish. I mean, we see this in our kids. So smart. They just know what to do on the homework, but they don't do the homework. Foolish. Now, they can be educated. They can go to school, the best school, and we just think, but if we can get them in the right schools, they'll turn out, they'll be fine. And here's one of the big myths that has come into our world, really in the last 100 years or so, is that the primary responsibility for preparing and raising our kids is the school. It's just not. The place where your kid is going to be developed, the place where you as a young person are going to become is in the home. That's why, if family falls apart, it all falls apart. That's why so much of the crisis in our culture goes back to our loss of commitment, our loss of belief, our loss of resolution to build and be families, because you can't count on just knowing stuff. It's not about success. Some of us think that our goal is to help our kids just be successful. And we certainly want our kids to be successful. We want them to go to a good school and make a good living and all those kinds of things like that. But at the end of the day, you can raise your child to think that those things are important, and they will really miss what is meaningful in life. They will really miss what is important. One of the proudest moments of my parenting life was when one of my kids had an opportunity to take a dream job, but was in a hard job, but felt like God was calling him in the hard job. And he said to me, I don't want to do what's easy. I don't want to do it as expedient or easy. I want to do what's right. And I just said, oh my gosh, you're leaving money in your dream job. And he stayed in that thing, and it was the right move, and it prepared him for what he's doing today. Just an amazing thing. What is success? You can also just, be old. Some say, I just want my kid to live a long time. And so we bubble wrap our kids. We get the confusion that we think that our primary responsibility is to protect our kids. It's not. Your primary responsibility is to not protect your kids. Your primary responsibility is to prepare your kids. And in order to prepare them, you got to teach them to take risks. You got to teach them to get out there. They're going to fall. They're going to get hurt. They got to learn how to get up and be resilient. And so wisdom is all about not what your kid will understand, not the things that you tell them, as much as what they do. And what they do will be largely determined by what you do. Remember our definition of what we consider wisdom. Wisdom known by her children. And that is to say, wisdom is not what we say or understand or think, but wisdom is what we do. And isn't this what you want your child? At the end of your child's life, this is who they were. This was a person who lived faithfulness demonstrated by their actions, their character, their relationships, and outcomes of those who walk consistently through the stages of life with the awareness and the ways of God. And so we're wanting our kids to be wise people throughout their life, and that the thing that really defined them, the thing that really mattered, is that they were people of character. They were people who had a good name and good reputation, that they were people who did something that mattered and was meaningful, whether they make a lot or a little, whether they're famous or not. None of that lasts, none of that matters. So how do you raise wise children? Well, the book of Proverbs is full of instruction on it. In fact, if we were to do just a series on wisdom from Proverbs for parents, we could do a 10-week series. So reading through, we get the idea of many principles for raising kids. But the central one I want to talk to you about goes back to that point, that central skill that I believe is crucial for relationships. And when you learn this skill, and you learn how to properly apply it, your whole relationship life will change. And the skill is respect. It's respect. Now, you thought I was going to say love, didn't you? Love is important. Love is assumed. Love is that place that, it's just this nurturing kind of environment that's wonderful. But learning respect transforms your relationship. You ever been in a work environment where there wasn't mutual respect? Two people who worked together who disregarded each other and disrespected each other? That doesn't work. Have you ever been in a marriage or seen a marriage or thought about a marriage where there was not respect, where the couples were tearing and beating each other down? Have you ever been in any kind of a friendship where you really trusted and loved a person you did not respect? Now, part of the issue with respect is that we get the idea that respect is grounded in behavior. We say this thing as though it's actually a proverb from our culture. You're not going to find it in the scripture. Respect is earned. Respect is earned. When you start being respectable, I'll start respecting you. The Bible actually has a different take on this. Now, remember what we've been saying about this thing of wisdom. Wisdom is grounded in fear of the Lord. So the very first thing it says in the book of Proverbs is that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And that's another way of saying this, that I want to put God in the middle of everything, because wisdom is about how I live, not about what I know. And that's a good thing, because of all the things there are to know, I don't know most of them. I mean, think about that. That's true of you too. Think about all the things in the universe that you have known, you've seen, you've witnessed, you understand, you fully could explain, all the points of understanding, the subtle shifts and all the different things.
Most of what there is to know, you don't know. And if your take on wisdom is that I have to know the right things to make the right choices, you're going to freeze up a lot, and you're going to fake it a lot. And now, biblical wisdom says that is not the source of wisdom. The source of wisdom, listen now, is not what you know, it's who you know. Because it's not important for me to know everything there is to know for me to live a life that's wise. It's important for me to know the one who knows everything. I follow a God who is omniscient. He knows everything. And because he knows everything, I can relax. Because I believe he is good and he loves me. And so he is revealing to me, listen now, when I'm walking with him, when I fear him, when I put him in the middle of everything, he is revealing to me the things I need to know in my time, in my space, in my life. And so when I respond to him, when I focus on him, I have the information I need that I haven't got the ability to sift through all the information there is. And so when you have fear of the Lord, when you have God in the center, then you get wisdom. And that's why it's so important as parents that we have homes where God's in the middle of them, where we're bringing our kids to church, even if they're squirmy and they don't seem to like it and they don't like it and they have attitude. You have no idea what they're actually learning. And when they grow up and they start really realizing what's important, the best chance of them being in church is you being in church with them, even when it's hard, even when it's busy, even when they schedule all the practices on Sunday and Wednesday nights. You really need to resist that because you're telling your kids something about that, what's important. Saying we're going to put God in the center of our life. We're going to be here because God deserves our thanks and our worship. We need to hear from God. We need to center our life on God. That's why you need to learn to pray as a family, at your meals, every night, particularly with your littles. You say, I don't even understand what's going on. But if their earliest memories are that I learned to fold my hands and not squirm and say amen after Dad said the prayer, whatever. That's why you take the devotions and you teach the devotions because you put God in the middle of it. And you put God in the middle of relationships. And at the middle of God's view of relationships is this thing of respect. Now, let me explain how this works. When God created us, he made us in his image. That's one of the defining, unique things about Christianity. There really is no other worldview that holds that position. And yet that worldview position that God created us in the image of God, in his very image, it permeates the morality of the entire world now because it's just so compelling. And what that means is that every person is created with the perspective that we should see that this is a person created in the image of God. And how I treat them is actually how I treat God. So as much as I do to the least of my brothers, I do that unto God. That's what Jesus said. And so every person is worthy of my love. They're worthy of my kindness. They should be treated with justice and fairness. And every person, simply because they are created in the image of God, should be worthy of my respect. You see, respect is something that is given to honor a person for different roles they play in the human story. Simply because a person is a human being, we respect them. Now, how does that express itself in the most general way? You hold doors open for people. When someone gives something to you, you say thank you. When someone does something good for you, you acknowledge it. When someone falls down, you help them up because you respect the dignity of their person. In their most vulnerable times, you show them respect. And when you go through life with the understanding that you will never see a mere mortal, you will never see a loser who is worthy of your disdain and your hatred. Every person should be treated with respect. It changes your relationship. It also expresses itself in certain kinds of relationship. The Bible is very clear that just because a person is in a position, they should get some respect. Older people should be respected by younger people. And oh my gosh, have we lost this. We make fun of the old. We disregard them. We currently have a culture whose center is based around the younger people who are adults. I don't know about you, but when I was 18, 19, or 20, I was never more ridiculous. I was never more clueless or lost. I was no more certain of my position and my goodness and my rightness and further off from how I needed to be. I was in that insecure point where I wasn't a kid anymore, but I wasn't quite an adult anymore. And in our culture, we have celebrated that time where when we're a teenager, we're racing to get to that point. And once we start getting older, we're desperately trying to cling on to that time when we were young and all those kinds of things, when it really was the most silly time we were alive. My apologies to the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. You'll understand in a couple years. But this is the deal. our culture says we should be listening to them, and they should be setting the pace, and they should be giving the voice. And I understand all that, and there's some truth in that. But what we really should be saying is, let's look at these people over here who have lived a life, and they have raised children and built businesses and established life, and they have done it well. What do they think? And there should be an honoring of the elderly. We should be honoring people in positions. We are told to honor like pastors, spiritual leaders. We're told to honor and respect political officials, people who God, the Bible says, listen, we think we elect our leaders. The Bible says God puts them in those places. And when they are in those places, even if we did not vote for them, or we got senators from both parties in this state, we should be praying and praying for the success of both of them because we believe God puts them in those positions for good, and we want them to do good, and we should show them respect. We should be very careful about saying disrespectful things to people we don't like, particularly when our kids hear us, because what do they learn? Disrespect. And ultimately, the place we learn respect, and the Bible could not be more clear about this, is in the family. Children should be taught, should be admonished, should be expected to respect their parents. Because when respect breaks down in the parent-child relationship, it all falls apart. Parent, here's a little clue. If you want your kids to respect you, respect them. Respect their dignity, their voice, their understanding. This is the key to relationships. You want it to be love, and I get love's important, another sermon, another day. But the actual key to healthy relationships is respect. So let's take a look at what the scriptures actually say. A call to honor and obey and respect. And I had like 30 verses from Proverbs on this. It just keeps saying the same thing over and over again. He says, my son, keep my commandments. Forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always. Tie them around your neck when you walk. They will lead you when you lie down. They will watch over you when you are awake. They will talk with you. For the commandment is the lamp and the teaching of light. Over and over again, we're told to listen to our parents, to understand that God has gifted us with our parents, that we should take every bit of wisdom we can get from our parents, and we should absolutely cherish it. There are things that we will hear now that we will even roll our eyes at years later when we have kids and we're holding our kryptonite kid, and we realize, oh my gosh, they felt this and they were going through this. And we become much more gracious and respectful to our kids. This, by the way, is one of the 10 commandments. It's one of the 10 commandments. We disregard this horribly in our culture. Look what it says. It says, honor or respect your father and mother, that your days may be long in the land, and that the Lord your God is giving you. So this was a command given to the children of Israel when they were coming out of 400 years of slavery, and they did not know how to have a culture, did not know how to have a society. So God gives them the law. He gives them the way to live together. And if you understand nothing else about the law, you need to understand it is all grounded in respect. It is all grounded. This is your property. I'm going to respect that. This is your call. I'm going to respect that. This is your wife. I'm going to respect that. This is your cattle. I'm going to respect that. Because you are creating the gods just like I do. A fool is a person who disregards that and takes whatever they want because they have, this is what the Bible says, no respect for God or any man. So when that breaks down, it all breaks down. And so he's saying, listen, if you're going to live long in this land, if you're going to be a successful society, if you're going to be a healthy community, you better teach the kids to respect the parents. Because when that breaks down, it all breaks down. So he goes on. Didn't stop there. He talks about discipline. This is the key to building respect. So when you get a kid is there's no greater tyrant in the world than a 2-year-old. And if you let your 2-year-old and your 1-year-old and your children and your teens become tyrants, then they have two options. They're either going to be very foolish, they're going to make stupid decisions because they're clueless, or they're going to be wicked, evil, bully people. And they're going to bully people in all kinds of different ways. If they're strong and they have power and they have money, they can bully in the traditional ways. But if they're they're self-pitying and weak, then they will constantly be threatening to give up and to crawl in a hole and not do good, and they will threaten you with that. They will bully you with their weakness. And you will be afraid that if I don't go in and bail them out, I've got to save them all the time. Because you hadn't taken a step back and understand that the Bible over and over and over again tells parents, discipline your kids. That is to say, teach your kids parameters. Teach them how to control themselves. Teach them how to manage themselves. Teach them that ultimately they are responsible for themselves. Teach them how to manage negative emotions. Say, what do you mean by that? Well, everybody has negative emotions. Some people manage them, some people are managed by them. How did you handle the last time you got angry? Not well. I just dealt with it. I prayed about it. I worked it through. I handled it. When was the last time you were disappointed? How did you handle that? Well, I gave up. I blamed. I ran from it. I just got angry, okay? Or, you know what? I just said, what can I learn from this? I was resilient. When was the last time that someone said something bad about you that wasn't fair, wasn't just? Or when you lost something you really cared about? Those are negative emotions, and that's going to happen in life. And if you're clever protecting your kid from that because you think your job is protecting, not preparing, if you think that your whole deal is to somehow either be a snowplow knocking everything out of their way or being a helicopter dropping down whenever there's a problem, if the child has a conflict with the teacher and you show up with the teacher showing disrespect to the teacher and taking off on the teacher, or you can't do this and you can't do this, somehow or another you think you're helping your kid, instead of coming home and saying, listen, that teacher is the teacher. And you do what they say. Well, it's not fair. Well, that's a negative emotion. Let's talk about how we're going to handle that. Because they're saying it's not fair doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't fair. You're smarter than that. It might mean that it didn't feel fair. And actually, if I were older and had perspective, I would see actually they were being really fair, and the one not being fair was me. And even if it wasn't fair, they're in the position that God has put them in, because God's in the center of anything, so we're going to do what they say as long as they're not saying something bad or wicked or harmful or that kind of thing. We're not going to protect our kid from every disappointment. We're going to teach them, and this is what discipline does. It teaches you to control yourself, and it teaches a kid to understand, it teaches all the young to understand, you are responsible for yourself. And one of your jobs in growing up is learning how to manage yourself and prepare yourself so someday you can not only take care of yourself and not be a burden to everyone else around you, but you can not only take care of yourself, but you can actually do some good for someone else. You can actually take on the shoulder of being in a marital relationship where you care for another person mutually. And then together you could be people who actually have children who could help them become something powerful, and you find a life of meaning and significance in that. So we are called to honor our kids. Look what it says. It says, folly is bound up in the heart of the child. Can I get an amen? Right? And we just see it. A child is about what I want, how I see it, and this thing, and I'm going to throw a fit. And they will work hard to get control of the situation. It's amazing how many 2-year-olds control the situation. You're bigger than they are. Pick them up. Walk away. Figure it out. You say, I don't know how to do the discipline thing. Read a book. There's like 50 of them in the resource center. There's YouTube, and I know there's stuff. And so this folly is bound up in their heart. And if you don't parent them out of it, that will be who they are and how they become. And it is challenging. They push back. Our culture doesn't really cooperate very well right now with this. But you are responsible for helping kids. But the rod of discipline drives it from him. The rod of discipline, we think, okay, is that about spanking? And we're not talking about spanking here. What we're talking about is you figuring out what discipline looks like for you. Some people asked, did you and your wife spank? I said, we didn't have to, because they knew we would if we had to. It was like having nuclear bombs, assured destruction. I shouldn't tell you the story, but here's the deal. My boys, when they were really little, I had 3 boys, 2 girls. There were 5 of them. We were outnumbered. It wasn't even close to fair. A couple of them were really sneaky and smart. But if we were calling them and they weren't listening, all Whitney had to do was rattle the spoon drawers. And they just started running, and yes, Mama, okay. And they said, yes, Mom, and they said, yes, Daddy. And we taught them respect. We would practice with our kids how to talk to an adult. So if you're in church or you're out in public and an adult says hello, you look at them and says hello, and they ask your name, you tell them your name, and we'll be there. We'll make sure no strange people, and we talk to them about stranger danger and all that other kind of stuff like that. but we taught them to respect these other people. Here's the thing about respect. If you don't learn to respect others in relationships, you don't really respect yourself. Because what you're respecting is the dynamic of humanity. And so to be a person who learns how to manage yourself and show respect, this is the parenting task. Jordan Peterson says it this way. He says, don't let your children become someone you don't like. Because you love them and you're going to put up with them. But if you let your kid become someone you don't like, when they get out there in a world that does not love them, they're going to be isolated. They're going to be alone. They're going to be full of relational conflict. Teach them how to treat other people well. And this is where love comes in. What it looks like to be a loving person. Love is really just respect is just another word for love. It's honoring the dignity of all people, whether they need it or whether they want it or not. Look what else it says. He goes on. Whoever spares the rod hates his son. So the person who doesn't discipline, the person who doesn't take the responsibility to raise the child actually is doing great harm. I talk to so many people, this is true relationships across the board, but particularly parenting. Well, they do this thing, but I don't want to make them feel bad. I don't want to ever say no to them. I want to gentle parent or whatever they're doing now. You know, I don't want to discipline them or sit them down. What if they feel bad? And you say, well, why don't you want them to feel bad? Well, they feel bad, I feel bad. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Because we're not talking about them, we're talking about you. And listen, let me just say it. Parenting will make you feel bad. It will make you crazy. There are times you won't know which way is up, but it's your responsibility to figure that out. As a marital couple, it's your responsibility to get down, get on the same page, get some coffee together and say, okay, what's our parenting philosophy? So I have no idea. I'm going to go to a class, I'm going to read a book, but we're going to get on the same page, even if you're separated. One of the greatest points you can do in harm if divorce comes in your life, and I understand divorce comes in lives sometimes, is to be parenting two separate ways. Instead of being grown-ups and coming together and saying, hey, let's talk about how we're going to do this. Let's put the kids first in this thing. Because we have a responsibility to help them be amazing human beings. If they don't learn respect, they won't respect things like school and process. If they don't know how to discipline, education won't help them. Physical health will decline, the whole thing. But when you put the agency back on the kid, that you have a life that God's right in the middle again, has created you to live, and let's help you figure out how you're supposed to live it, that becomes a thing. But whoever spares the rod hates his son. You actually are treating them with disdain. But he who loves him is diligent to discipline him, is diligent. Over and over again it tells us this. The rod and the reproof give wisdom. That is to say, guiding, correcting, saying no, pulling back, creating boundaries. Listen, I tell you what, if kids don't have boundaries, it's actually a source of great anxiety. When you say you can do whatever you want, you make all your own choices, that is a paralyzing thing for a kid. The younger they are, the more you should just help them have boundaries. But a child left to himself brings shame on his mother, that, you know what, I'm just going to let them do their deal. Because ultimately, their heart is full of folly. They don't know. They need the wisdom. You actually know stuff they don't know. And so often we don't do it because of insecurity. We're afraid we don't know enough. Well, read a book, learn something, go to a class. Ask your parents what they would do, what they would think. As a grandparent, there's so many grandparents say to me, I see my kids and they're doing this thing, I just want to say something, but I can't say anything. If you went to them and said, what would you do? And you could show them respect and they could show you respect back, you could find some great answers. We used to raise our kids multi-generationally, but to be called to discipline. And what this leads us to is joy. It says this, the father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers wise sons will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. And this is the beautiful thing. I had a wonderful experience yesterday. My son, who lives in Appleton, came over, and several of my kids, including my daughter with my granddaughter, we had breakfast together, and I'm just sitting at this table looking at this and saying, boy, I got 5 people, and they're great human beings, and they're not all of them exactly where I wanted to be, but it's their life, and I trust God, and just it was this beautiful thing of coming back and saying, God, this is the most important thing I've ever done, is having these kids and raising these kids, and thank you. And now I have a granddaughter, and that is just the bomb. Because you can play with them, and someone else has to discipline them, so you send them home after they're sugared up, that kind of thing. Not really. But the point is that it's this unbelievable source of joy. He goes on. and consider Jesus. Now, this is what I want to say to just those folks who maybe you didn't have the best parents. I didn't have perfect parents. My father was an alcoholic. In my teen years, I hated my father. I had to first learn to forgive him, and then I needed to start respecting him. And that happened when he was older, and through the counsel of a very wise counselor, he said, just go talk with your dad and ask him questions about his life. And I asked him about his time in the war he fought in. I didn't know he fought in a war. He fought in a war. I knew, but I didn't know. I asked him about his parents. I kind of found out that his parents died when he was 4. And he did not have a father's influence. That explained a lot. And just started getting to know him and asking questions, becoming curious. And then I started realizing that this is a man who was very accomplished. He always provided for his family, a business leader in the community. He was a guy who started a hockey association in Superior. And hockey's, pretty close to religion in Superior. And he was the president of it. And he had all this influence. He did all these amazing things. He was articulate. People liked him. People respected him, followed him. I saw that part of him I'd never seen before. Now, it doesn't change that there's some really dark stuff there. But it helped me see that two things can be true at once, and it gave me a way to respect him, because what I didn't understand is that when I was hating and despising him, I came from him. And so I was hating and despising myself. And so there was a need for me to take a step back and find some respect. And again, I recognize some people's story is very dark, much darker than mine, but for most of us, we tend to be one extreme or the other. Look at Jesus' example. Remember we said that Jesus is the source of all wisdom. That's why you want to talk with your kids, introduce your kids, make Jesus the center of your home. It says, Jesus went down with his parents and came to Nazareth. Look at this. And he was submissive to them. So Jesus respected his parents. He said, God has ordered Mary and Joseph above me as the child, and I'm going to respect that because I respect my Father in heaven. This is Jesus. You want to talk about having a kid smarter than you? You want to talk about a kid? He said, Mom and Dad, I remember when I made you. I mean, come on. You made me, please. I mean, the jokes don't stop here, right? I mean, go on and on. And yet he was submissive because he recognized this is an order God has put down as part of understanding. This isn't Mary treasured all these things in her heart. There are things that mom knows. There's a wisdom that mom has that dad doesn't have. And you learn to respect all of that and be open to that. It's a beautiful thing. And Jesus, look at this. He had to grow up. He increased in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man, but it all started in this place of family, in this beautiful place. And so I want to challenge you with some next steps. If you're here this weekend and you had given up on family, maybe you're a single person, maybe you're a married couple, say, that family thing, go back to prayer on it and see if God did not call you. And the very first thing God said to the man and woman he made him in the garden, he said, be fruitful and multiply. That is both a command and a blessing. It's a command to fill the earth, and we need to fill the earth with Christian families. It's a beautiful thing to do. And just ask yourself what you want your life to mean. And for most people, the answer involves children, and we just got to get back to a point where we celebrate that, we value that. It's where we do children dedication. And if you're here with a parent, as a parent, get in the game. If you're disengaged, if you recognize, I don't have a discipline strategy, I don't know how to discipline my kids, they're running over me. Instead of getting mad because what you don't do is nothing, blow up. All right? Not a good strategy, by the way. I'm going to go to a class. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to talk with my wife. I'm going to then talk with my kids. This is how we're going to do things now. These are where the line is, and when you cross the line, this is how it's going to work. And there's beautiful points of discipline. You will be blessing your kids as much as you bless them when you give them food and water. If you give them the safety of a disciplined home, a home that is good, in a healthy place. And so get engaged. Grab the devotions. Grab the devotions. Every week, put children's devotions out. Pray with your kids in the evening. Pray at meals. Have meals together. This is what you're called to. This is the main thing you're called to. It's more important than your job, more important than your hobbies, more important than the Packer game this afternoon. It's more, I know, right? Whoa, wait now. Stop it. There's a line, Pastor, you just crossed it, all right? That's the thing. But we come back to this thing of teaching our kid discipline, expecting respect. By the way, dads, don't ever let your kids disrespect the mom. Mom, don't ever let your kids disrespect the dad. You want to blow a family apart, and you want to get dad to disengage and mom to be hurt, just keep that up. And you want to make your children something not beautiful, not wise, just don't do that. Okay, so take those steps together. Now, I want to end my time today, not with a prayer, but just with a video announcement. It's an incredibly cool thing. I just want to say this about what you're about to see. Everything we do here, from Jacobswell Kids to youth groups to premarital stuff to mentoring stuff, is all about building families. And God has given us an opportunity, He's actually given us a huge blessing to build another aspect of our ministry on the south side of our property. And we're just going to take a look, and then the team's going to come and worship us out.
Hey, Jacob's Well family, Pastor Paul here, and I'm standing on the south edge of our campus where God is about to do something new, something big. This campus beneath our feet is a gift from God. He has handcrafted these hills, these trees, this open sky to be a home for His church, a place where lives are changed, families are restored, and people meet Jesus. Now that same God is entrusting to us 10 more beautiful acres just south of here. Rolling hills, mature trees, open sky, prime land with a small house and a storage building. Yes, they need work, but picture this. A guest house for missionaries and guest speakers, a prayer retreat and a house of prayer, spaces to seek God in stillness and intercession, campfires and gatherings for youth, young adults, and our 60-plus groups, stories, worship, s'mores, and life together under the stars. A place to launch outdoor ministries with canoes, tents, and trailers, and even more. A sanctuary where we experience health, wholeness, healing, and restored relationships, body, soul, and spirit. And the game changer? A future wedding and event venue. Couples saying I do beneath the oaks. Anniversary parties, worship in the woods, community celebrations, and opportunities to generate income to fuel the mission of the church while blessing the Chippewa Valley for generations. Now here's the miracle. Every dollar is already raised to purchase this property by generous donors who see the vision. At our next Journey Partner Rally and Dinner on November 15th, our church membership will vote to make it official. As we head towards our 25th anniversary, this just isn't land, it's legacy. God keeps saying, I'm not done with Jacob's Well. So to all our members, our Journey Partners, RSVP if you haven't already, and come out November 15th to celebrate. We have so much to share. As we begin to dream, let's pray, give thanks, and step into these next 10 years together.